Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. It's Masters Week. It is Masters Week. It's the best week of the year, Masters Week. So today, I'm actually recording on Wednesday. A little bummed that the par 3 got cut short due to weather, but hey, that happens. And now it looks like weather's supposed to be good Thursday through Sunday. So hopefully, we'll get a great tournament going here. Everything Masters is just awesome. So I'm looking forward to watching. I know I'll be glued to the TV pretty much today through Sunday. It's pretty nice. Before we get into it today, got a cool show. Before we get into it, just let you know this episode brought to you by Team Titleist. And, we're excited to share with you guys exclusive opportunities from Titleist. But to be a part of them, you have to join Team Titleist. Team Titleist gives you access to opportunities like prototype testing, special events, limited edition gear from Titleist, and so much more. Sign up and join us on Team Titleist at www.titleist.com/Team Titleist. All one word, Team Titleist. So, yeah, if you're somebody who's seen those all-white boxes of Pro V1s floating around and you want to get your hands on some, Team Titleist is the way to do it. So, it's Masters Week. Happy Masters Week to everybody. This is literally like my Super Bowl every year. I absolutely, it's like my favorite sporting event of the year. I know I had a couple friends go down this week, and they were at practice rounds and stuff like that. Super jealous. I want to get back so bad. Most of you know I went in 2016, and it was just awesome. It was so amazing. I mean, you're just in awe when you walk around the grounds there. So I definitely want to get back sometime soon. I know I put in every year for tickets, and every year I get the nice rejection email from Augusta National. But hopefully one of these days I will get back down there again, and it is always just such a special place. So yeah, a little bummer. Par 3 got cut short. It was still fun to watch. I think seeing all these guys, their families, all there out having fun, hitting balls and letting their kids take some swings, all that stuff is just really cool. And, you get to see kind of a side of these guys that you probably don't really get to see normally. And it's got to be nice, a little relaxation, a little calm before the storm of Thursday teeing off and it's go time. So it's going to be exciting, going to be fun to see. Like I said, I'm super excited to watch. And, I'll hopefully get some work done this week or the next 2 days, but we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, this week, got a great show. My buddy Spencer Reynolds over at Fujikura, him and I jumped on and just talked some shafts, man. Just kind of broke down kind of everything in the Ventus line, a little bit Speeder NX, whatever, but just talked a little bit about just shafts, just kind of geeking out and basically talked about a lot of stuff that I know you guys asked me on some of our Q&As and stuff like that on Instagram. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, it's at Club Junkie Pod. And every Wednesday or Thursday, I usually try to do some type of Q&A session where you guys can ask questions. And typically it's comparing clubs or whatever, my thoughts on certain clubs. And it's fun. It's a blast. I love how many questions I get, how crazy in depth some of the questions are, and I like chatting with everybody just about golf equipment. It's just what I love. So that's always fun. But yeah, we kind of just shot the breeze about a lot of that stuff. A lot of the questions I got kind of went to him, asked him, and kind of broke down each shaft, kind of what it does, who it's for, kind of maybe a little bit how they compare to each other, and it was just a fun conversation of just two guys talking shafts. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll be here next week. We'll talk probably a little roundup of the Masters. I know I don't break down a ton of tour stuff, but it is the Masters, so I will probably break down a little bit of what happened. But hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy the Masters. Enjoy this interview with me and Spencer Reynolds, and we'll guys talk next week. All right, what's up, everybody? We're back, and like I told you, here with Spencer Reynolds from Fujikura. Spencer, thanks for taking the time, man, on a busy Masters week. Thanks for taking a little time.
BK, anything for you, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
I make time for the great Brian.
Oh, man, you're going to make my head explode. It's not going to fit in the little frame here.
I see your headphones are swelling out as I keep talking.
Yeah, these Sonys aren't going to be able to hold this melon.
That's right.
Here. That's right. It's already large, and it's not from ego. It's unfortunately just genetics. But
it's housing a lot of very valuable information is what it's doing. So
I don't know if my wife would agree with that. But I think other golf junkies like us who listen to this show probably do agree that the amount of shaft knowledge and all that I possess is valuable. But my wife doesn't see it the same way. So, but. Yeah, man, we got a Masters week. It's always super exciting. I mean, this is just like the craziest week in golf, and for a lot of people, it's like this is the start. Like this is it.
This is kickoff, man.
I know. I've been watching a lot of live on the range, just watching like Tiger hit balls, some other players just hitting balls and all that, and it's pretty cool to see. So, yeah, man, Masters is up, and we'll kind of start with a tour. I mean, it's one of those things where I know Ventus, I mean, it's been around for a while, but man, I mean, on tour, it seems like every day I watch, it's just like guys with woods. They've got Ventus in the bag. So Ventus is still holding strong on tour, right? I mean, it's still going real strong.
Yeah, very much so. Across all 3 and now 4 profiles with TR, it's going great. We had our 5th win in a row with Ventus last week, which was awesome. I think right now we're basically sitting at 13. That was our 13th driver shaft win out of 25 events this year. So we're blowing through it, man, and it's an exciting ride to be on. And like you said, every week we tune in and we check that survey, and we watch TV on Sunday, and we can't believe that we're just going gangbusters, and it's awesome. I feel good about it. It's really awesome.
I mean, like I said, I'm one of those guys when I watch the PGA Tour, I'm watching for what clubs are in people's bags, what shafts, what grips, whatever. And, it just seems like every week it's like no matter who's on top of the leaderboard, we're seeing silver graphics up near the handle. And depending on the lighting, it may be hard to tell between blue and black, but there's a lot of them out there. So that decal's gotten some pretty quick recognition these days, which is awesome. You can spot it from a mile away. It really has. Do you ever sit back in the office with the other guys and kind of wish, like, man, if we would have only made, like, neon yellow and neon red, like, man, they would be everywhere.
I'll put it to you this way, hindsight is always 20/20. So it's very easy to sit back and say, oh, it would have been cool if we did this and did this and did this. But ultimately, the great thing about kind of the blue, black, and red profile situation is we have this really good understanding amongst our fitters, and then on tour too, we've kind of simplified what launch profiles do based on color. And so it really streamlines the story. It's easier for everybody to understand. We're happy with our red, blue, black. Ventus is certainly not the first profile to use that color combo in our family. We did it with Atmos as well and some other parts. But it's crazy to see, and we get excited about it every week, just like it's the first week out on tour.
For sure.
It's fun.
And I think the other interesting thing too is near kind of the end of last year and even into this year, how many guys you're starting to see red pop up a lot. And I know a lot of people kind of have this thought of red being, it's high launch, or it's higher launch, it's higher spinning than the other two and whatnot. But you're seeing a lot of guys start to use it not only just in fairway woods where a lot of players look for maybe a little higher launch or a little added spin, but you're starting to see it in drivers too. And it's kind of amazing that shaft is caught on really well on tour also.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a few factors in there as well. Like you and I have discussed a million times, high launch, higher spin is relative to the player, right? Especially when you start to get into the 7Xs and 8Xs and sort of heavier, stiffer profiles. Inherently, there's not many things out there that are going to be in an 8X or 7X that launch, quote unquote, high, right? Maybe higher, but not high. But I think it's this really cool combination of being able to pair a profile that has a lot of stability, especially in the handle section. I mean, it really mimics the handle section of Ventus Black more than it does blue. This is that softer sort of mid to tip profile, and that really couples pretty well with today's sort of lower spinning golf balls and lower spinning drivers. And that's where I think you see that transition. It's really great in a fairway, but it starts to work in driver as well, as long as you see a good peak trajectory without too much spin and too much ballooning and sort of enhanced carry distance. There's a lot of guys that are into that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and like you said, I mean, those guys too. They're also not they're not chasing low spin. Like they're not sitting there going after crazy low spin numbers because they are so efficient. Majority of them hit up on the ball. They're very neutral. I mean, there's very few guys who hit down on it unless they're maybe hitting a specific shot. But
very true.
I mean, so they're not out there looking for the absolute lowest spinning combination. They're looking for something to hit those launch windows or find that feel that they're really looking for to dial it in. So. I can see where something that's not black fits into their bag fairly easily.
I mean, totally. When you look at spin on a golf ball, a lot of that is it traces back to control. Spin equals control.
Yeah.
And so some players naturally have that, the way that they deliver the golf club, and some players need a little more assistance from component parts or loft in the club or whatever it is. But it's really kind of finding that sweet spot of maximizing distance without losing control of the golf ball. And I mean, that's the great thing about having 3 profiles is that it can slot into just about anybody's bag and give good results. So it's great.
Yeah. So, so let's get into a few parts to talk about. I know my show, I mean, I do a ton of, or not a ton, I like to say I do a ton of Q&As, but I really struggle each week to make sure that I get in on like Wednesdays or Thursdays because I just lose track of time.
Right.
And before we get into parts, notice that behind you, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, on Golf WRX Radio, you can see behind Spencer is, I noticed some of the high-speed cameras from the old Enso system sitting behind you. So you're definitely hanging out in the hitting bay, the Enso bay.
I am.
And before we get into a few parts, like, break down a little bit what Enso is for some people who may not know yet.
Yeah, for sure. So Enso is basically our proprietary 3D motion capture software system, and we recorded over 1,000 frames per second, and we use a series of sensors on the shaft and on the club head itself to basically measure everything that the shaft does during, before, and after impact. And for us, it's become a real stable in our R&D process. One thing that's great about Fujikura is we have the ability to build, prototype, and test everything in-house here. And a lot of our R&D is driven from Enso analytics. We've looked at thousands upon thousands of combinations to see what shafts do, if it's soft in this section or stiffer in this section, or if it's stiff in 2 sections and soft in 1 section. So we have all this data that when we start to go down a path of we want to design a new profile or a new part, we kind of say, okay, what do we want it to do, right? What are the characteristics we want of this shaft to be? And then we kind of go back to Enso analytics and we say, okay, we've done some research with this, we've done some study with this is kind of the results it produces, this is how we get there. And then we marry that with material integration, we bust it out in the back room and we bring it in here and we test it. And the great thing about utilizing analytics in that way is that there's definitely trial and error, but we're really on the track we want to be on basically from the first prototype. So it streamlines everything from an R&D perspective. And it's really cool to see utilizing analytics into a build and then testing the build and see it get validated. We kind of go, boom, we did it.
Done.
It's awesome. Yeah. So it's great.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So you don't have to basically waste a bunch of time with hundreds of prototypes when you can scale it down to a couple, take them out, kind of verify. Yep, that's kind of what we thought it would do, or it wasn't, and then kind of go from there. Which is it's got to speed up the process to come out with stuff greatly.
Totally. And at Fuji, a big part of what we do is consumer testing. We've got a full-time product testing coordinator, which is pretty rare in the shaft business to have that, but we're really dedicated to understanding how our shafts perform with consumers. And a big thing with us is also we're very focused on the tour for sure, but we also understand that it's a very elite group of players. And so our challenge is always to produce a part that can appeal to tour players all the way down to amateurs. And so we're very cognizant of the fact that we could put in certain text or build specs that might be very beneficial to that 1% of golfer. But we want to make sure that anything we do is going to translate all the way across the board. And so that's sort of one of our driving beacons, so to speak, when we do shaft design is this going to perform better for everyone? And once we make it, we offer it in an array of weights and flexes, and that's where something like Ventus and VeloCore is so awesome. It's beneficial for all golfers to have a more stable shaft, and so that's that sort of trickle down effect of you're definitely capturing that top 1%, but everyone down to your weekend warrior is going to benefit from it, and I think that's why we've seen so much success with it, and it's such a successful part. It's great.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been huge. I mean across, we've been talking, and it's like, when I go to some of these OEM media events, it's like you're watching people go through fittings, and it's like how many Ventus shafts are sitting next to the staff bag or next to the stand or whatever. And it's
right.
They're everywhere, but also in the forum. I mean, how many people are still playing? And when you look at kind of the what's in the bags and people discussing what they've been trying or whatever, and most of our audience, which is very niche. I mean, as much as everybody listening thinks that we are we're kind of a small sliver of golfers. Of guys who are dreaming of 9X Ventus Blacks and things like that. That's not a extremely popular part outside of Golf WRX.
I mean, even on tour, we have a very small presence of TX flexes, and we see more X's tipped an inch than we really do true TX flexes, and that's not right or wrong. It's just sort of the way it
Yeah.
shakes out. That sort of builds better for a lot of tour players. But we definitely have them in the arsenal in case we need them. And I know that your readers love them.
Yeah.
Man, it's like put a T in front of that X, and it's like Christmas came.
Oof.
It's awesome.
mean, I don't think I've ever been. I mean, the group that we are. I mean, so many people. I mean, I'm a slow swinger by a long shot compared to some of the guys that we have on the site.
Right.
So it's crazy to think about. But yeah, jumping into some of the parts. I mean, I always get a lot of questions. People always ask, when they're looking for shafts. And like I said, I do Q&As on Instagram, and if you don't follow, at Club Junkie Pod. And if you want to, it's at Fujikura. What's Fujikura one? It's Fujikura Tour.
Yep. We're at Fujikura Golf. You can find us pretty easily.
Yeah, it comes up always with your story, and I just never like to look at it because I click on it, but I never like to look at the actual thing. But I always get a lot of questions about shafts for this and shafts for that, and what I want to do is just kind of get into just generalizations of that, because realistically, I mean, we all know the only way to say for sure if a certain shaft is going to fit your swing and your game or whatever is to go get fit, and that's the only way.
Absolutely.
To do it. But there are people like myself who are just going to hit everything because they can, and some guys like to build stuff in their own basement shop like me. So just in terms of general, I mean, let's start with just like Speeder NX, and I know it's not a Ventus part, but Speeder NX. I actually really like it. It's actually in one of my 3-woods. I never really thought it was going to be kind of a 3-wood shaft for me. But I think you guys sent me a 70-gram version, and I was like, this is perfect. I'm going to try it there. But in terms of Speeder NX, what does that shaft kind of, in general, what does that shaft kind of characteristically wise do?
If you were to relate it to anything that I would say is sort of common knowledge in our shaft space, if you wanted to compare it to like a Ventus Blue or something like that, it's of that similar profile. That variable torque has increased stiffness in the tip and in the handle section, a little bit softer in the midsection. I'd say apples to apples, if you laid them down against each other versus a Ventus Blue, you'd probably see a little bit higher launch, a little bit higher spin. But with a lot of the same stability characteristics by reinforcing that tip and that handle section, you really brought a lot of stability to that profile, but there's still a tremendous amount of sort of that feel in the midsection, which is something that, Speeder historically has been known for. It kind of has this unique sort of Speeder feel, and it's something, we definitely didn't want to get away from, but it's trying to marry that smoothness and that feeling of a nice kick with adding some stability sort of to both parallel ends of the shaft. But yeah, I would say it's kind of in that family. When you talk about reinforcing tip sections, especially, you start to kind of get into that family a little bit. But it doesn't surprise me that that's a fairway option for you, because it does kick it up a little bit. It would spin it just a little bit more. It's pretty easy to swing, basically at all weights and flexes. So and it can hang in there when you get into the 70s and. You get the heavier weights and the stiffer flexes. I mean, it's not shy. It's got a lot of stability to it. It's got a lot of beef to it. But I would say kind of in that realm, it maybe has a little more softness, a little more smoothness to it. But it's even hard to say that because, one of the things that we get told the most about Ventus Blue is how smooth it feels. So it's, it's hard to, pit one against the other. But on a scale, I would say, a little bit higher launching, a little bit more spin.
Yeah, and that's the thing when people talk about feel and how smooth, this feel is so subjective as well.
Totally.
It's like wearing a pair of shoes. Like I could go out and say, hey, this pair of shoes is the best, most comfortable pair of shoes in the world, and you could put them on, and you've got different feet, and go, these are horrible. Like they fit.
Yeah.
So feel, in terms of that, it is totally subjective, and like I said, what some people find the smoothest shaft, other people may find and say, well, it's not that way for me. So, but you're right. The one thing I was impressed with Speeder NX, and I don't know why. I think because hitting all the previous generation, like Speeder Evolutions, I thought it was going to be a much softer shaft in terms of the feel. Like I thought it would load real easy and all that. And it isn't, especially in the 70 gram. It does have some stoutness to it. And like you said, if you're a guy who's got really fast clubhead speed, it's definitely something that isn't going to feel loose or it's not going to feel whippy by any means. I was kind of impressed with how kind of stout it felt while still being smooth and not having any harsh vibration or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a good midway point. Like you said, it's got a little bit of that signature sort of smoothness that you would have expected, but it holds in there just a little bit better. Somebody told me one time it was like if Ventus Blue and an old Speeder had a baby. That would be the product. So, but yeah, you're totally right. Feel is absolutely subjective, and that's even when we talk about Ventus, that's one of the great things about even adding TR into the mix is. A lot of really great reception with that part as it does sort of walk the line between a blue and a black. And some players said, man, this is exactly what I want. And then there were some players that go, it's still a little bit too soft, or it's a little bit too stiff. I like the original blue better, and that's okay. I think the beauty of our lineup is we have these sort of specific, feels and profiles that we don't overlap too much.
Yeah.
So there's places for anyone to go, even if there's subtle tweaks. If you say, something's not quite right here, right here, I got something in the middle, and we've got this a really good lineup with a lot of good options.
I agree. I mean, I think there's something that'll fit anybody. I mean, in terms of, whatever you want to do in terms of launch characteristics, in terms of feel, in terms of whatever you're looking for. There's a shaft in the Fujikura line that's probably going to fit those needs. I'd be hard pressed to see that there's not. I mean, really, pretty much everything's covered. If you look at the whole spectrum of shafts, which is quite large, to be honest. It's kind of funny when you look at everything, because everybody kind of focuses on Ventus, and then you forget that there is Speeder NX, Motore X. I mean, there are other shafts out there that you guys make that fit other needs that I think people have kind of forgotten about a little bit, but are still there for certain swing types, certain launch windows, everything like that.
Yeah, and we run a breadth of product kind of through price point as well. I mean, we kind of start at the Vista Pro level and go all the way up to Ventus and Speeder, and that I think there's maybe two myths I would say about Fujikura, and one is like all of our stuff is super expensive, and the other is that you have to be a Tour Pro speed to hit it, and it's not true, which is good. It's good that that's not true. We run the gambit in price and in profiles and in feel, and we got a little bit of something for everybody, which is great.
Yeah, and one of those shafts that's not crazy expensive, is not selling the super high end. And I just mentioned it, the Motore X. I mean, F1 and F2,
great part.
F1 and F3. I do have to say, I remember my original sim. I was told, hey, you need to try the F3 in that head. Mm-hmm. It's a really good combo. And I remember hitting F3 6X in the original sim and being kind of shocked at how good those two married up, because the F3 had a little bit of spin, that sim head was super low spin, and the ball speed generated by Motore X, it was just like one of those things that, man, you could bomb some drives with that combo. But
totally.
Motore X, I mean, you got F1, which is kind of the low launch version, F3, a little higher launch, but they both are great at, if you're looking for somebody who looking for ball speed, they tend to fit that bill.
Yeah, I mean, it's a profile with accelerated taper. It's built to be fast, and a lot of the tech that's under the hood there was derived from sort of, Velocore learnings and Enso learnings and sort of Ventus technology. It's not the same as a Ventus. Ventus is kind of ratcheted up and out with the tech that's inside, but that's kind of the cool thing is every time we introduce these flagship products, whether that's Ventus, whether that's Ventus TR, or even Speeder NX, we start to understand these techs, whether that's integration of exotic spread toe material, or whether that's variable torque, and all these little things. The great thing is once they're in the atmosphere, it's hard for us to ignore the cool things that they do, and you start to see this little trickle down effect that everything's got a little bit of something in it, all the way down into our Vista Pro series. I mean, we've learned over time how to just make better and better product. And, we're able to integrate that tech even at a smaller level all the way through our entire catalog. So, that's a great point about Motore X. I mean, that's it was built for speed, and it delivers. It's a fast shaft.
Yeah, and I think the F1 is one of those ones that, unfortunately, I think kind of got overshadowed by Ventus Black. But, being a little lower launching, a little lower spinning, but still having a good kick at impact, there's a lot of players who could love a little speed, but they need to still have that lower launch, lower spin. But that F1... like I said, I think just unfortunately kind of got overshadowed by its bigger brother a little bit. But it's a shaft that, if you're looking for a little lower launch and that, but you don't want to lose that really good kind of feel and impact, F1's a great option.
It totally is. And to your point, I would say as far as, maybe adoption rate or popularity, however you want to categorize it, F1's a little bit the sleeper. F3 was kind of the flagship, so to speak. But you're totally right. I mean, It's got some meat to it. It'll hang in there with you. There's no doubt. It's a good part.
Yeah, I got to hit it actually. I think before it ever launched, I was out in San Diego in Carlsbad, and I was there at headquarters. I got to hit it, and I was like, "Wow, this thing feels great." But I'm like, "It is not me, man. Like this thing is just
right.
It's too low. Like I don't remember what head I was hitting it in there, but I was in the shop hitting it, and I was like, "This thing. I mean, it's good, but it ain't gonna make it in my bag." And
I don't know. I'm an F3 guy. I'm a Ventus Blue guy. So all of you can tell me what it feels like when you actually hit a golf ball hard. Just tell me how it feels, and I'll believe you.
Yeah, I about to say that's unless it's the right head. The low launch, low spin guys are just they tend not to be my friend. But and then let's talk about it. Ventus Black. It's the one that. I mean, I guess if Golf WRXers had a shaft, it would be it. I mean, the low launch, low spin. It's kind of a beast. I do have to say, though, in say like the lighter weights, it doesn't tend to be as brutal. I mean, you know, even if you have a decent amount of club head speed, or you need that to change that launch window. I mean, if you get down to the 6s and what, there's even a 5. Getting into those, they're a little more playable. They're easy to square up. They're not crazy. I mean, yeah, when you get into the 7Xs and the 8, I mean, those things start getting pretty beefy. But that black is actually pretty playable in the lighter weights for even guys with moderate club head speeds.
Yeah, and inherently, like you're talking about, anytime you start to back weight off, you start to get to that, especially in that 50-gram range, it's, you're going to give up some stiffness as well. Those two just kind of work together. Even in an X profile, it's going to be very different than a 70X, right? But what's interesting about Ventus Black is I've heard a lot of players say that it's finally their answer to something that they can just go after and not worry, right? It's finally their answer to, I can smash at this thing, and I've got enough stability and certainly enough stiffness in the tip that if I start to lose things left or right, unless it's me, it's not going wild offline, which is kind of a phenomenon and a good feeling for high swing speed players to have, that idea that I can really rip at it and not just kind of hold my breath and hope I don't take out a window. And then the flip side of that is I think we saw a lot of good feedback with Ventus TR because there was a lot of players that said the same thing. They said, I'm a higher swing speed player and I love the stability of Ventus Black, but when I peg it at 6:45 in the morning and it's kind of, it's like 50 degrees out, I wince a little bit when I put that ball on the tee and I kind of got to bring it or this is going to feel, pretty firm. So, yeah, but it is an awesome, the ultimate sort of stiff, low profile shaft that, for the right player, it's a godsend. And for the wrong player, it's no thanks, I'd like to try something else, please.
Well, the other thing about it, too, is that it offers kind of that low launch, low spin, but it still doesn't have harshness to it. Like, there are some shafts out there that perform well in terms of they get the ball down, they lower the spin, but when you make impact, the field just isn't quite as nice. And Ventus Black, as long it is stout, it definitely is a stiff profile from butt to tip, but it isn't harsh or anything like that. I mean, it still does give you some feel, even though you're launching it low and spinning it low.
Yeah, and I think that's a great comment, BK, and I think that's true of the entire Ventus line. Is that there's just still we found the recipe that you can still marry this next level stability and consistency without giving up on feel. And it's kind of the easy thing to do is dump feel out the window and just, integrate the stiffest, materials we can find and put a bunch of wraps on it and make it heavy and super stout and go have fun. But to your point, yeah, even Ventus Black, which is a profile that's geared more towards players that really want to limit, the amount of kick and feel. They want to feel that the shaft is kind of in one place for the whole swing. Even at impact, they'll tell you that it feels not forgiving and not soft, but not like you're just swinging a telephone pole either.
Yeah.
There's a little give to it.
Exactly. And then you get into Ventus Blue, kind of like the OG. I mean, it was the first one out, the one that everybody kind of saw. It's still a ton of bags on tour, a ton of bags here. I was telling you the other day, I mean, I've been to 3 OEM, launch events, and every one of them for driver, they fit me into Ventus Blue. Which is interesting because that's the one I play the least out on the course sometimes. But
tell all of them the check's in the mail and appreciate their service.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Ventus Blue, I mean, it's kind of the mid-launch guy, the one that probably in terms of players maybe the widest in terms of a little overlap over black and red or whatever, maybe the widest. But Ventus Blue's still super popular. I still see a ton of them in bags. But it's just kind of the workhorse of the Ventus line almost.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, anytime you introduce a new part, you kind of have this 6 month to a year window where it's going to be popular because it's a new part.
Yeah.
People are going to want to bring it in, people are going to try it, et cetera, et cetera. And then kind of after that point, you see where the dust settles. And here we are 3 years later, and one of the things that we contend in this office is that the reason we continually sell so many Ventus parts, even the black and red, but especially the blue, is that it just performs for a lot of people. And that's the cool thing to see, the longevity of that design and that performance, that it really does just continually fitting after fitting after fitting really do what a player needs it to do. But yeah, blue's totally the kind of mid-launch, low spin. It's pretty soft in the handle section. You can feel some transition, some kick. It's very stiff in the tip, so you don't lose it left or right. It's a little bit. I know for a player like myself, it was really something awesome to find, because I personally like a shaft that has some give in the handle section. And inherently the issue was I always found shafts that were like that, but they were softer in the tip section, which, my missus left, and I don't really like, I don't like to feel a lot of kick at the bottom. But I need it in the top section. So what I used to always have to do is just find softer handle shafts and then just tip them a lot, which is not very conducive to good feel, right?
No.
So when a player like me gets a hold of a Ventus Blue, I mean, it's really firing on all cylinders, and I think that's probably true for a lot of players, which is great.
Yeah, and that one there, I'm kind of not shocked, but the first time I got my hands, because I typically, in driver play like 6X, and then fairway would have been a play 7X, but I'm like, I kind of fluctuate. I just like the weight, but in terms of how much speed I carry, it's like I'm kind of in between. But the one thing with Ventus Blue I thought was, in a 7X, it isn't like punishing you. You can go out, like you said, it's got a little softer handle. It's easy to feel it load. It has a great release at impact, and it doesn't feel like black is stout. I mean, you get to blue, and it definitely has a little more livelier feel, and it feels like you're kind of transferring more energy and all that. And it doesn't play as brutal, even in the heavier weights, as some of the stuff with the really stiff handle sections.
Yeah, totally agree. It's nice to have that sort of range, that to be able to keep a similar feel and be able to bump it up in weight and flex and not lose it entirely. It's a nice spot to be in.
Yeah. Exactly, and like I said, I've got a couple of fairways and stuff that, like I said, just was surprised. I was like, like when you look at 7X, you're going, oh boy, all right, like let's go, let's bring some heat. And it's like, well, you really don't have to here. Like you're all right.
Yeah, I remember when we came out with TR, I was so excited for you to hit it, because for so long you had told me, be like, like I'm right in between a blue and a black, and the black is good, sometimes a little too stiff, and the blue is good, but sometimes I feel like I want to go after it. And I was just like, I want to tell you about something so badly. And I just can't yet, but you're going to be happy with it.
Yeah, and then let's move to that one right there, TR, because it's a little bit of the, it's the newest one out of the Ventus line, the brand new. The Ventus, it basically what is officially Ventus TR Blue. I mean, is the official name.
Yeah, sure.
And I know there's a million questions about will there be a black and a red, and Spencer's not going to say yes or no to that. So
do you want me to answer that now, so we can just get it out of the way?
Well, I mean, people are going to want to know. People want to know, will it be the two matching red and blacks?
It is absolutely in the consideration set.
Okay.
Was that good? Was that a good answer?
Was that the Tiger Woods, I may play at the Masters today?
Yeah, that's right.
Let me wait 9 more holes.
Yeah, as I'm lacing up my shoes. Yeah, I might play. We'll see what happens.
But, so, the Ventus TR Blue, again, the blue, kind of the symbolization of this is kind of more the mid-launch type arena. But, definitely a little... kind of I wouldn't say a totally different, but a little different feel than Ventus Blue. If you're to kind of blind taste test the two, you're not going to really know that they're similar in a sense. They do feel very different. But yeah, TR, like you said, I tend to have a really quick motion. My tempo is not Ernie L smooth. So for me, stuff like Ventus Black and Ventus Red, I tend to feel a little more comfortable with. Where Blue, that loading sensation is just, like I said, it doesn't jive with me as well as other shafts. But as soon as I was able to hit TR, I think the first thing I said, I was out there in the hitting bay there, and I think I hit it, and I was like, wow, you could definitely tell this upper handle section is definitely more stout than Ventus Blue. But TR kind of, where does it fit? Because I know it's not exactly, but where does it kind of fit in the range with the other three?
I would really say, if you're going to pinpoint it from a fitting perspective, it would slot between blue and black.
Yep.
It's a little lower launching and lower spinning than a blue, but not quite so much so as black. It would lean more towards blue than black, but it really is. It's kind of a tweener. And that, kind of your earlier question about will there be a black and a red. What's interesting is that when you have this really strong profile in original Ventus with red, blue, and black, and you're capturing basically 3 player pools really efficiently. The question on our end is like, well, are there some stragglers out there we might be able to reach if we made a few tweaks here and there? And so that's why I say it's definitely the consideration set. If we start to see things like material integration or design changes that produce very specific results and very successful results, then we're absolutely going to explore that, within those different pockets.
Yeah.
But we definitely started with blue because there's feedback from players on tour and fitters and dealers that was probably the only downside or complaint about blue, was that some guys and gals preferred that softer feel. But it was just a little too soft in that handle section. And then we were talking about Enso earlier. What's cool is we take that information, we go run that back through Enso, and we look at it and we go, huh, you know what? It actually does bend a little bit in that mid to handle section. We could probably beef that up a little bit. It would probably do this, this, and this. And then the question is, well, okay, how are we going to do that? What material are we going to use? And then we go down a whole other rabbit hole of design changes. But it's interesting how those little nuggets make their way into, well, yeah, we got some data on that. We can look that up. And then sure enough, when we produce something, it does what we're looking for it to do. And, it makes this really great tweener product for players like yourself that have a quicker transition but like to have some feel, and it's still ultra stiff tip, still very, very stable, still houses VeloCore technology. So it's basically in some ways it's just like a blue enhanced, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It fills a niche.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it really is. I mean, I'm a guy who, the idea, the profile of black, fits, I think, my tempo, my swing characteristics, but I don't hit it very high. I hit it fairly flat. So, to have a shaft that launches that low, I mean, something like TR definitely, where again, I mean, I could find a way, but yeah, like you said, you could go out and tip something or do something. You could probably find a way to kind of Frankenstein something together, but to just go out and be able to say, oh yeah, give me a TR, Ventus TR 6, whatever, be able to just go in, hit that, and not have to mess around with, all right, well, if I tip this an inch or an inch and a half, and can I make this thing work? And you don't have to do that. You can just roll in and. TR, like I said, for me, it just feels more in control, throughout the swing. And for me, it just gives me a little bit more confidence that, yes, if I shut the face, swing over the top, I'm going to hit it left. I'm just going to do that. There's no shaft that will save me. But
yeah, I'm still looking for one myself.
Yeah,
let me know when you find that cure for the shut face. That would be awesome.
That'd be great. But but it gives you that confidence that if I put a decent swing on it, I'm gonna find the fairway or be close to it, and it's gonna give me just that little bit of control that maybe I didn't have with blue for me. So
yeah, and you bring up a good point about tipping, and what's cool about having a myriad of really solid profiles to choose from is you can start to dial it in really closely, and then you can use tipping to really fine-tune it.
Yep.
You're not really stuck in a scenario where you're forced to tip something to try to get a performance characteristic. You can get pretty close with an existing profile, and then you can kind of go that next level and dial in with a half inch, an inch, whatever you might want to do. But it gives a player more options, and it just leads to a more finely tuned and specific fit. And as hokey as this sounds, it is always our biggest thrill to help golfers play better. And we love to see our stuff on TV. We love to see our tour pros doing well with it. But what really drives us is that idea of we are in a position where we can help golfers play better golf. And if we can do it, I mean, we're going to go all in and do it. And so offering more options and more profiles really just reaches that many more golfers, and that's our opportunity to make that many more golfers better. I mean, we're all in on that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean it is. I mean that's like one of the things when people ask me about working with OEMs and companies like you guys and stuff, and it's like across the board, if you go to any golf manufacturer of any type of equipment or whatever, there is no such thing as just we're just throwing something out there. Like the amount of R&D and tech that goes into every product, from the smallest golf ball to grips to whatever. I mean, every company is out there trying to make better products to make you play better golf. It's just
totally,
that's what it is. And yes, companies are trying to pay the people who work there, and they're trying to keep the lights on, and yes, they do have to make a profit in order to do those things. But at the end of the day, they're really trying to make great products. It really is that.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that's a blanket statement across our entire industry. Every OEM, everybody that's making anything golf related. I mean, it's a passion industry.
Yeah.
We play golf. We love golf. We all want to be better at golf. And even for me personally, I was kind of a late bloomer to the game of golf, and that was one of the reasons I got so into fitting and equipment was, I wanted to find ways that I could improve my own game. And when you start to see the effect that properly fit golf equipment can have, it really blows your mind. And then when you think, well, man, if we can introduce, X more people to this over time, what an eye-opening, awesome experience to be a part of. And, we have an excellent, charter dealer network that supports us in a huge way. We've got amazing club fitters. Our tour staff is incredible. So I'm very proud of our company and the daily steps that we take to help players improve. And I can tell you, we're not going to let up anytime soon. We're all thrilled to be doing it.
Yeah, and then so the last thing. So I mean, you already mentioned Red. We kind of talked about that in the beginning, right after
Sure.
Tour. But there is a very interesting forum thread that I was kind of going through, and guys were calling it the Ventus Purple, and they were basically talking about taking a Ventus Red, especially in fairways. It sounded more than they were doing this, and if you tipped it an inch, it would adjust the playing characteristics where they would say it would be, a little closer to bluish, and it would kind of play that in between route. I know officially you're not going to say yes, this makes it purple, but it's very interesting to see that, like you go down this Tinkerer's Road, and guys are kind of coining this own little, Ventus Purple, even though that shaft itself doesn't exist, but taking a Ventus Red, tipping it a little bit, and then it playing, kind of in between that blue and red. But it's very interesting to see, our communities seems to be very interested in that.
Well, I would tell you this: anytime you let club builders loose, they're going to come up with all kinds of crazy things, but also some very cool things. And that goes back to our early conversation about tipping. You're taking a shaft profile that is maybe inherently softer on one end and still stiffer on the other end, and trying to blend your way into something else. And to those guys, I say, if you grip it and tip it and it works, man, just go with it. Let it rip. I mean, if it works. But again, like that kind of goes back to our earlier conversation of if these are characteristics that we see players wanting, then we can start to incorporate those designs into future products, and we can actually make a shaft from start to finish that behaves that way versus having to heavily modify something. So I think, honestly, it's fun to dive in the threads and read what people are doing. I think it's cool to hear about various success stories that people have by tinkering one way or the other. Some guys no tipping and I'm playing it at 46 inches. Guys, I'm playing it 43 and a half and I tip it an inch. It's all over the map. But I think that just shows that Golf WX has a passionate fan base, and they love golf and learning about golf and want to be better at golf. And if you got some time in the garage and take it into your own hands a little bit and see what happens, I mean, I'm down to read about it.
Yeah, I do it. I mean, I'm down here doing that stuff as well. Just a forewarning, though, for anybody who's thinking about going down this road. Once you tip something, you can't go back. So go slowly. Don't just
it's
lop
like getting
off.
Your hair. Yeah, it's like getting your hair cut.
Exactly.
It takes a while for it to grow back. Don't go too short.
Don't just go full inch right off the bat. Maybe go half inch, try it, see how it plays, and then if you need to go another half or whatever, do that. Don't just go full head first, because you cannot change it once it's done. And
and for us, BK, when we look at tipping, Marshall's got great feedback on this as well. Is that you're when we look at flexes and we're separating things out, a full flex, a full flex, a full flex, and we do that all the way out into our TX flex. I mean, it's legitimately a full flex stiffer. We start to look at tipping as sort of that tweener option, So if you're in between an S and an X, you could go a half inch. But also, if you start to go a full inch versus going up to the next flex, you can start to incorporate some feel characteristics of the softer flex, and then some stability characteristics of maybe if you went up in a flex. So there definitely is some merit to that sort of, going, let's say 7X tipped an inch versus maybe 7TX.
Yeah.
There are some, subtle differences there, but it's good to if you don't want to start straight in, I'd always start at a half and kind of work your way up from there before you just go nuts.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And it's really good tipping, because I get it. There's a handful of people out there who I think, get their hands on something, whether they, get it from a buddy or a cheat, whatever. And it's like, well, I got the stiff, but I really want the X. And, how much can I tip it to make it an X? And like you said, you can kind of fine-tune the characteristics, but if you tip something a ton, the back end, the middle section, the butted section are still a stiff flex, or still a flex of whatever it was. So there's no, I mean, in my eyes, there's no true way to take a 7S and turn it into a 7X without buying a 7X. I mean, you just got to go get it. Like you said, that tipping can just kind of fine-tune and maybe get you to that feel or that spot that you really like, but it's not going to make the whole shaft play 100% differently. I mean, that stuff's still there. So,
totally.
But,
totally right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, man, that is awesome. I know
that's it. That's my 20 questions. Did I do good?
I think so. I think you passed. I think we'll give you a little gold star, up there.
That.
But yeah, man, I want to say thank you again for taking some time here on Masters Week. I know productivity this week is definitely lower than usual. We're all
some truth to that.
We're all just waiting for. Tomorrow we get. We're recording this Tuesday, so I know this comes out Thursday, but we're all waiting for Wednesday part 3, and then Thursday, man, it's go time. So I know
I'm
we're
very
all
excited.
geeked. So it's awesome. But yeah, man, thanks again. I always enjoy. I mean, I always enjoy just talking to you. But thanks for taking the time and
Absolutely.
Going over some shafts, and it's been a blast, man. Thank you.
Give me a shout anytime, BK.
All right, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.